The gym was loud that evening. Metal plates clanged. Music thumped through the walls. Sweat, ego, and competition filled the air. It was the kind of place where people came not just to train, but to be seen. That's when he walked in. No flashy outfit, no designer shoes. Just a calm, middle-aged man wearing simple workout clothes, moving with quiet confidence. He scanned the room once, nodded politely to the front desk, and walked toward the lockers. That was enough. A group of young gym bullies noticed him immediately. Big guys, loud laughs, phones always in hand. One of them smirked and whispered something. Another turned around openly and stared. "Yo," one of them said loudly, not even trying to hide it. "Is this gym giving senior discounts now?" Laughter erupted. A few people looked over. Some smiled awkwardly. Others pretended not to notice. The man didn't react. He calmly placed his bag down, changed his shoes, and walked toward the weight area. That only made it worse. One bully stepped directly into his path. "Hey, old man," he said, recording on his phone. "This isn't rehab. You sure you won't break a hip in here?" More laughter. Still, no reaction. The calm man looked at him briefly, not angry, not scared, just calm. He gently said, "I'm just here to train." That sentence alone seemed to offend them. "Train?" Another bully mocked. "Bro, this guy looks like he meditates more than he lifts." People nearby began to slow down. Eyes shifted. Phones came out. The bullies circled him now, testing boundaries, enjoying the attention. What none of them realized, what not a single person in that gym knew at that moment, was that this quiet man they were trying to humiliate was Seagal, a man who had spent decades mastering discipline, control, and self-restraint. And as the laughter echoed across the gym, one thought hung heavy in the air. They had no idea who they were messing with. Have you ever seen someone judged or mocked just because they looked different or underestimated? The laughter didn't stop. If anything, it grew louder. The group of bullies fed off each other's energy. Each comment sharper than the last. Each joke louder, crueler. They wanted a reaction. Anger. Embarrassment. Anything they could clip and post online. The calm man ignored them and walked toward an empty bench. One of the bullies deliberately dropped a dumbbell near his feet. Clang. "Careful, Grandpa," he sneered. "Wouldn't want you getting hurt." A few people nearby exchanged uneasy looks. This was no longer joking. It was harassment. Still, the man said nothing. He wiped the bench, sat down, and began warming up slowly. Controlled movements, measured breathing, no rush, no show. That calm. It irritated them. One bully stepped closer, holding his phone inches from the man's face. "Say something for the camera," he taunted. "Tell everyone why you're pretending to belong here." The man looked up calmly and said, "I'm not pretending. I'm just training like everyone else." His voice wasn't weak. It wasn't aggressive either. It was steady. That only made the bullies angrier. "Wow." One laughed loudly, turning to the crowd. "He talks like a monk." Another added, "Bet he can't even lift half of this." They began stacking plates on a barbell, far heavier than necessary, not to challenge him, but to humiliate him. People started paying attention now. Some whispered. Some shook their heads. Others pulled out their phones, not sure whether to intervene or just record. The man stood up and looked at the barbell. He studied it quietly, not intimidated, not impressed. One bully leaned in and said, "What's wrong? Too heavy?" The man replied calmly, "That's more weight than you need to prove a point." The words landed harder than expected. For a brief moment, the bullies hesitated. Then one of them scoffed. "Listen to this guy giving advice." The tension thickened. A trainer across the room glanced over but didn't step in yet. The crowd was growing. Still, no anger from the man, no raised voice, no ego. What no one realized was that the calm man they were pushing, the man they thought was weak, was Seagal, a man trained not just in fighting, but in restraint. Stephen adjusted his gloves slowly. He wasn't backing down, but he wasn't looking for trouble either. The bullies mistook that patience for fear, and that mistake was about to cost them. If you were in that gym, would you step in to stop this, or keep watching from the sidelines? The atmosphere inside the gym shifted. What had started as mockery now felt heavier, thicker, like the air before a storm. The bullies stood close, too close. Their laughter had lost its humor and turned sharp, impatient. They wanted dominance, control, a moment where the quiet man would finally snap or shrink. Neither happened. Stephen adjusted the straps on his gloves with slow, deliberate movements. His breathing was steady, measured. Not once did his eyes dart around in panic. Not once did his posture collapse. That calm made people uncomfortable. A few bystanders whispered to each other, "Why isn't he reacting?" Anyone else would have lost it by now. One of the bullies noticed the growing attention and raised his voice, playing to the crowd. "Come on, old man," he said. "You're holding up the gym. Either lift it or admit you don't belong here." Stephen looked around briefly. Phones were out now, everywhere. Some recording out of curiosity, some hoping for drama, some clearly waiting for a disaster. Stephen placed his hands on the barbell but didn't lift. Instead, he stood there, still. That pause made the bullies uneasy. "You scared?" one of them asked, forcing a laugh. "Because it's okay to admit it." Stephen finally turned his head slightly and said calmly, "Fear makes people loud. Control keeps them quiet." The words landed like a weight drop. A few people gasped. Someone muttered, "Damn." The bullies glanced at each other, caught off guard. They weren't used to this. They were used to people backing down, apologizing, exploding. Not this quiet confidence. The main bully stepped forward again, jaw tight. "You think you're smarter than us?" he snapped. "You think you're better?" Stephen met his eyes, calm, steady, unreadable. "I think you're trying very hard to prove something," he said. The gym went silent. Even the music seemed quieter. That was the moment the bully lost control. He shoved Stephen lightly, just enough to cross the line. Not hard, not violent, but intentional. A ripple went through the crowd. The trainer across the room stood up straighter now. Stephen didn't stumble. He didn't even flinch. He simply took one slow step back and raised his hands, not in a fighting stance, but open-palmed. "I don't want trouble," he said evenly. "But you should stop." The bully laughed nervously, masking his frustration. "Listen to this guy giving warnings," he mocked. "What are you going to do, lecture us?" Stephen said nothing. That silence again. It was starting to feel dangerous, not because of aggression, but because of restraint. The bullies mistook it for weakness one last time. The main bully leaned in close, voice low and threatening. "You don't get to tell us what to do in our gym." Stephen looked at him, not with anger, but with clarity. "This isn't your gym," he replied, "and this isn't how strong men behave." That did it. The bully's face flushed red. Around them, people stopped lifting, stopped walking, stopped breathing. Everyone sensed it. This was the breaking point. Stephen Seagal, the man they still thought was just a quiet stranger, stood relaxed, balanced, ready, not eager, not afraid. A lifetime of discipline held him in place. The bully clenched his fists. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Something's about to happen." Stephen exhaled slowly. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He wasn't here to prove who he was, but he wouldn't be humiliated either. And as the bully took one aggressive step forward, the truth became clear. They hadn't just underestimated a man. They had underestimated Stephen Seagal. At this moment, should Stephen walk away to avoid escalation or stand his ground and defend his dignity? The gym no longer felt like a gym. It felt like a stage. Every sound seemed sharper now. The hum of machines, the faint clink of weights, the low murmur of whispers spreading through the crowd. People had stopped pretending this was normal. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just another gym argument. Stephen stood where he was, relaxed shoulders, balanced stance, eyes calm, almost distant. The bullies hesitated, not because they had suddenly found respect, but because something didn't add up. Most people, when cornered like this, showed something: fear, rage, panic. Stephen showed none of it. One of the younger guys whispered to the main bully, "Bro, why is he so calm?" The main bully scoffed, but his voice lacked confidence. "Relax, he's just acting tough." Yet even he couldn't ignore it anymore. Stephen's movements were minimal, but precise. Every shift of weight looked intentional, every breath controlled. Across the room, the gym trainer had stopped coaching a client altogether. His eyes were fixed on Stephen. That stance, he thought. That balance. He had seen fighters before, not bodybuilders, not show-offs. Fighters. A woman near the squat rack leaned toward her friend and whispered, "Doesn't he move differently?" Another man nodded slowly. "Yeah, like he knows something they don't." The bullies felt it too. Their laughter had faded. Their confidence cracked. The main bully tried to regain control, clapping loudly and forcing a grin. All right, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let's see what the old guy's got." He gestured toward the barbell again, still stacked heavy. Stephen looked at it, then looked at the crowd. For the first time, he seemed fully aware of how many people were watching. Still, he didn't lift. That confused them. "You gonna do it or not?" the bully demanded. "Or you just like the attention?" Stephen answered calmly, "I don't need to prove anything." That line hit harder than any insult. A murmur rolled through the gym. Someone muttered, "Respect." Another whispered, "He's not wrong." The bullies noticed the shift. The crowd wasn't fully on their side anymore. One of them snapped, "Why is everyone acting like this guy's special?" The trainer finally stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied Stephen's posture. The way his feet were placed, the way his hands rested naturally, ready, but not aggressive. The trainer's face changed. "No way," he thought. He leaned toward a staff member and whispered urgently, "Do you know who that is?" The staff member shrugged. "No idea." The bullies missed this exchange completely. They were too focused on saving face. The main bully stepped forward again, voice rising, desperation creeping in. "You think you're some kind of wise man?" he sneered. "You think talking calm makes you untouchable?" Stephen looked directly at him now. Not cold, not angry. Clear. "Violence," Stephen said quietly, "usually comes from insecurity." The gym fell silent. That sentence didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded lived. The bully's jaw tightened. A few people in the crowd began whispering names. "Is that? No way. Could it be him?" Phones zoomed in. Someone pulled up a photo online. Then another. The trainer's suspicion hardened into certainty. His eyes widened slightly as he took a step back. "That's," he murmured under his breath. The bullies sensed the mood shifting and panicked. They had wanted a joke, a clip, a moment of dominance. Instead, the room was turning against them. Stephen remained exactly where he was, not threatening, not backing down, just present. And for the first time since he walked in, people weren't looking at him as an easy target. They were looking at him with curiosity and growing respect. The truth was close now, very close. When the crowd starts turning and something feels off, should bullies back down or double down to protect their ego? The tension had reached a breaking point. You could feel it in the air, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. The gym, once loud and chaotic, now felt frozen in time. No weights clanged, no music mattered anymore. All eyes were on the confrontation. The main bully stood just a few feet from Stephen now. His chest rose and fell faster than before, frustration boiling under the surface. He hated what was happening, hated that the crowd wasn't laughing anymore, hated that this quiet man had taken control of the room without raising his voice once. "You think you're special?" the bully snapped, forcing a laugh that didn't convince anyone. "You think a few calm words make you untouchable?" Stephen didn't move. He stood grounded, balanced, as if the floor itself supported him. His eyes never left the bully's face. "I think," Stephen said slowly, "that you've gone far enough." The words were soft, but they carried weight. A murmur ran through the crowd. The bully's jaw tightened. He glanced around and realized something terrifying. The attention he craved was no longer admiration. It was judgment. People weren't cheering him on. They were watching him, waiting. That realization hurt his ego more than any insult. "You don't tell me when I'm done," he said, stepping closer. "You don't belong here." Stephen raised one hand slightly, not threatening, not defensive. "This is your last warning," he said calmly. "Step back." The gym trainer stiffened. Several bystanders held their breath. Everyone knew it now. This was the line. The bully laughed loudly, but his eyes betrayed him. "A warning?" he scoffed. "From you?" Then, he did it. He grabbed Steven's shoulder and shoved him harder this time. A sharp gasp echoed through the gym. For a split second, time seemed to slow. Steven's body shifted, not hurried, not explosive, but precise. His feet adjusted. His center stayed solid. In one fluid motion, he turned, guiding the bully's momentum past him. What happened next took less than a second. A controlled movement, a twist of balance, a calm redirection of force. The bully hit the mat on his back, hard enough to shock him, not enough to injure him. The gym exploded with noise. "Oh, no way. Did you see that?" The bully lay there, stunned, eyes wide, breath knocked out of him. His phone clattered across the floor. Steven stepped back immediately. No follow-up, no strike, no celebration. He looked down at the bully and said evenly, "I told you to stop." The room went dead silent again. The other bullies froze. They had expected chaos, a fight, a mess. Instead, they had witnessed control. The trainer rushed forward. "Everyone back up," he shouted. But Steven had already relaxed his stance. His hands were open again, his breathing calm. The bully struggled to sit up, embarrassment flooding his face as fast as the pain. Steven offered no taunts, no threats, only words. "Strength isn't about humiliating people," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's about knowing when not to." Those words hit harder than the takedown. Phones were shaking now, not from excitement, but disbelief. Someone whispered, "That looked professional." Another voice followed. "That wasn't luck." The trainer stared at Steven, his suspicion now undeniable. The way he moved, the restraint, the timing. There was no doubt anymore. The bully finally looked up at Steven, not with arrogance now, but fear. Who are you?" he muttered. Steven didn't answer immediately. He simply looked around the gym, at the people watching, at the phones recording, at the young men who had thought power meant intimidation. Then he spoke. "My name isn't important," he said calmly. "But respect is." A beat passed. The trainer swallowed hard and said quietly, almost to himself, "Oh my God, that's Steven Seagal." The words spread like electricity, gasps, wide eyes, hands over mouths. The bullies' faces drained of color. They finally understood. And in that moment, the entire balance of power shifted. Do you think Steven was right to step in and defend himself here? Or should he have walked away even after being touched? The gym didn't erupt into chaos. It froze. The trainer's words, quiet but unmistakable, hung in the air like a dropped weight no one dared to pick up. "That's Steven Seagal." For a moment, no one moved. Then reality hit. Whispers turned into gasps. Gasps turned into stunned silence. Phones that had been casually recording were now shaking. Screens zoomed in. Faces went pale. The bullies looked around, searching for laughter, support, anything. They found none. The main bully, still sitting on the mat, felt his stomach drop. His earlier confidence collapsed under the weight of realization. The calm man he had shoved, the man he had mocked, wasn't just skilled, he was legendary. Steven stood exactly where he was. No victory pose, no smug smile, no anger, just stillness. He looked down at the bully, not with satisfaction, but with disappointment. The trainer stepped forward, his voice firm now. "Everyone, relax," he said. "No one's hurt. Let's keep this professional." But the damage was already done. A few bystanders spoke up. "You guys went too far. He told you to stop. You humiliated yourselves." The other bullies backed away slowly, eyes wide, faces flushed with shame. One of them muttered, "We didn't know." Steven finally spoke again. "Knowing who someone is," he said calmly, "shouldn't be the reason you show respect." Those words cut deep. The gym felt different now. The power had completely shifted, not because of fame, but because of truth. The main bully struggled to his feet. He wouldn't meet Steven's eyes. I'm sorry," he said quietly. The apology didn't sound heroic. It sounded broken. Stephen nodded once, not accepting, not rejecting, just acknowledging. "You're not apologizing to me," Stephen said. "You're apologizing because people are watching." That hurt more than the fall. A few people lowered their phones, suddenly uncomfortable with what they had been hoping to record. Stephen looked around the room. "At some point," he continued, "everyone here will be the strongest person in the room, or the weakest. What matters is how you treat people when you think you have power." No one interrupted. No one dared. The trainer stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, we should probably take this to the office." Stephen shook his head slightly. "No need," he said. "This lesson wasn't for paperwork." He turned back to the bullies. "You train your bodies," he said evenly. "But discipline starts in the mind." The bullies stood there, silent, exposed. Stephen picked up his gym bag. No grand exit, no applause-seeking moment, just dignity. As he walked toward the exit, the crowd parted instinctively, like water around a stone. Someone whispered. He could have heard him, but didn't. Another replied, "That's real strength." At the door, Stephen paused and looked back one last time. "This could have ended badly," he said calmly. "But it didn't, because I chose restraint. Remember that." Then he left. The gym exhaled. The bullies stood frozen, surrounded by people who now saw them clearly, not as strong men, but as insecure ones. And the realization burned. If you were one of those bullies, would this moment change you? Or would your ego still find a way to deny the lesson? Stephen's footsteps faded down the hallway. The gym doors closed behind him. And only then did reality truly sink in. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The bullies stood frozen in place, surrounded by people who were no longer laughing, no longer entertained. The same crowd that had once watched silently now looked at them with judgment. The main bully finally lowered his head. The adrenaline was gone. The ego was shattered. All that remained was regret. The trainer broke the silence. "That behavior doesn't happen here," he said firmly. "You crossed a line." One of the bullies tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. They didn't argue. They didn't joke. They knew they had lost, not a fight, but their dignity. Within hours, the videos began spreading online, not because of violence, not because of celebrity, but because of restraint. Clips showed the calm warning, the controlled takedown, the moment Stephen chose discipline over destruction. Comments flooded in. This is what real strength looks like. He could have destroyed him, but chose respect. Ego versus discipline, and discipline won. By morning, the video was everywhere. People who had never trained a day in their lives shared it. Fighters shared it, coaches shared it, parents shared it with their kids. The story wasn't about a gym anymore. It was about power and how easily it's abused. Interviews followed. Reactions poured in. Stephen never responded publicly. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than any statement. Meanwhile, the gym issued a public apology. New rules were posted on the walls about harassment, respect, and conduct. Memberships were suspended. Consequences were real. But the biggest impact wasn't punishment. It was reflection. The main bully sat alone that night, replaying the moment in his head. Not the fall, but the warning he ignored. This is your last chance. He finally understood something he had never learned before. Strength without humility is weakness. The next week, something unexpected happened. The same bully returned to the gym, not with friends, not with cameras, but alone, quieter, focused. He trained differently now, head down, no jokes. People noticed. Some scoffed. Some nodded in approval. Change doesn't happen instantly, but it starts with awareness. And Stephen, he went back to his life. Training quietly, living simply, no victory lap, no interviews, just the same calm presence that had walked into that gym unnoticed. The world may have seen a viral clip, but those who truly understood saw a lesson. That respect is earned by how you treat the weakest person in the room, not how you dominate the strongest. If you believe true strength is shown through discipline and respect, type RESPECT in the comments and subscribe for more powerful fictional stories like this one.